that song became like our rallying cry when God bless a man. Because we didn't have a
I like
campaign, we didn't have millions of dollars to spend on our campaign.
you like that song. I like Feel the Power. Feel the
I
Power.
love that song. That no, well, let me go down the road now.
Go down
So,
the road. Go down
and
the
we
road.
had listen to me. The creativity that came out over this because of this campaign, especially when it came to the music that we employed on the stage and on our trucks and that kind of thing. To me, it was an awakening of the Tobago consciousness. So we start with when God bless a man. And the thing is that God blessed us to go through this entire campaign because we had no money. This campaign was run basically on thanks and prayers and best wishes and small donations and that kind of thing. And I think that we were able to put out an excellent product in spite of the fact that our opponents were spending something like 100 times what we were spending or what we had access to spend, contrary to what they tried to instill in the hearts and minds of Tobago people about our links to finances down the road. I'm yet to see any financer come on board. I still win, small money for things and whatnot because people trust and people, give of their time and their talents and their services, knowing that the PDP would pay and knowing that whenever we get money, we would settle our bills. So really, we have to thank the people of Tobago who would have extended credit to us for this campaign. They extended their time, they used their resources for us to be able to pull off the kind of campaign that we were able to do. And then we had that song Tobago Wake Up that was sung by Tintin. And that Tobago Wake Up song was, she started writing the song and then she hit writer's block. And then we had some other very talented young people in the PDP who helped her finish the song. And when she sang that song, the first time I heard that song, every time I talk about that song, my paws raised because that was a cry to the heart and soul of this island. Tobago, wake up,
Wake
Tobago,
up.
wake up. That was like literally a mother crying to her child, Tobago, wake up. You are capable of so much more. You are capable of doing better. You are capable of being better. That song was a cry to our very soul. That song was to me like a cry from the graves of our ancestors.
Mm.
Because where they are in the spiritual realm, they're probably weeping to see what Tobago has come to. And that song basically was they moved their spirits through a living young lady with a beautiful voice to be able to write that song, write the lyrics of that song, and cry out to the consciousness of our Tobago people. And that song really, I can't even say so much more about that song. That song in and of itself was very divinely inspired. And then that third song that you mentioned, now I only heard that song maybe like about a week before the election, but I'm going to tell you, that song has so much power in it, it's not even funny. We were in Roxborough that very last night because I think all the elements came together beautifully from the dancer who did our opening dance. That's Mr. Kristen Trim. He lives in Bonaccord, one of the most talented dancers that Tobago has produced. I just called him the day before and he said yes, he's going to do it. He did not request any payments or anything like that. And he choreographed that spot. And that's just to tell you the quality of talent this young man has, that he stood on asphalt and composed this dance that hit all the spots on that night. He set the tone for that last meeting. And during the course of the meeting, when they started to play that Fire Go On Them song, and they were playing it from the trucks. I'm telling you, I'm looking at the crowd. Now, this is COVID time, eh? So we didn't play any soca music or anything like that, really. But people are socially distanced, and I'm seeing people doing African dancing in the middle of a political meeting. I am seeing people swinging their flags low. I'm seeing people, and it was such a wonder to behold. I don't know. I don't know if we are able to recreate that magic a second time, but it says to me, that song in particular, that was like a freedom song. That was the freedom song. It's like the gates open and we're free now. So we're free to dance, we're free to move, we're free to just be. And that's why I love being a part of this movement because it feels like freedom. And I don't think anybody on the other side could argue with me when I say that they're not free on that side. They in bondage on that side. They can't say nothing on their social media on that side. They have to toe the line on that side. They have to go through the hierarchy on that side. They have to beg a favor on that side. They have to watch their manners, watch their mouth. They can't get vexed. They can't breathe too hard. They are in bondage on that side. But on this side is freedom.
Freedom. Liberty for all.
Freedom to live, freedom to thrive, freedom to grow, express yourself, freedom to disagree, freedom to misunderstand each other and come to a place of understanding, freedom to mess up, and freedom to forgive and move on, freedom to try and be better every single day. That is what this movement represents. This progressive democratic patriots movement equals freedom for me. And Tobago people are now getting a taste of that freedom. And as I say, 6-6 is very spiritual. It's a very spiritual result for me because you're talking about half of the island wanting to be free and another half still, existing in that place of fear, still existing in that place of wanting the status quo to remain the same, still existing in that place where they want to entrench the people at the top who are getting to benefit from 95% of the wealth that comes into this island, and they get the crumbs off of their table, and I know that change takes time. And I know that this is the time for change to happen. And that result is a demonstration as well that we on this side are willing to find that compromise. We are willing to find that middle ground. We are willing to look at the law and see what the law allows for Tobago to be able to choose its own destiny. And if it is they on the other side were truly looking after the interests of Tobago, they would not waste time in trying to figure out how the law could be used to manipulate the outcome in their best interest. At the end of the day, it's the best interest of Tobago. And if it is that in the best interest of Tobago, the law allows, and that's the thing, people are knocking the law. We have elected persons to be legislators. And I don't know if people understand that. The representative that you elect to parliament is a legislator, which means that they make the law. And back in 2010 or whenever they made the law that if we have a deadlock, that people could cast lots or draw straws or whatever. This is the law. This is what these people agreed to in parliament. These people represented us. So at the end of the day, we on the outside now come knocking the law. It's because we wasn't minding with business all the time. And this has thrown some light into that, certainly.
I need you to sit a little higher. Maybe bring your stuff, go back up where you were. Yes, you go up.
I'm thinking long in my chair. I getting so comfortable.
So relaxed. Yeah. That's where you were. Yes. And I will ask you kindly that that you get ready for another question.
Get ready.
Yes, because you know what?
I thought you were gonna bring out your tongue.
The other question is on the screen there, but somehow the last show I had and this show, I'm getting difficulty in reading this black on green. I'm not getting it at all with the lighting. So can you kindly read that question to yourself?
So let's talk about the events that are currently unfolding as a result of the 6-6 THA election results. What do we need people to know? Most importantly, we need people to know that there are options. There are options that exist within the law right now. And that is why the party has intentions of taking their case to court for an interpretation by the highest arbiter in the land, which is the court of law. Because at the end of the day, bad law can be passed in parliament. We can have bad legislation coming out of parliament. We could have legislation coming out of parliament that has loopholes. And what we're seeing in the Tobago House of Assembly Act in particular is that it has been crafted in a way that has made this situation even more dire for us because it's not clear on a lot of matters. And that is why the party is seeking that interpretation from the court of law as to really and truly what can happen and what can't happen. In my own capacity as a political advocate, because for me, I advocate on all issues. And I mean, even though I'm a member of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, there are things that the party may not speak to that I am in a position to speak to and speak about. And that is why I take my role in society very, very seriously. I started a petition last week, not Friday going ahead, it's the week before Friday. Mm-hmm.
Keep talking. I have to leave this set for a little bit and go check out something here. And
Yeah.
you keep talking,
Okay.
and while you're talking, just answer the question. Do you think we
Right.
should go
No
back
problem.
to the polls?
Right. So I started a petition approximately 9 days ago, which was proposing a very creative solution to the deadlock crisis. It requires an amendment in the legislation that would allow something like a runoff. So in the event of a tie, we have the two candidates for chief secretary and their pick for presiding officer um, going head to head in a runoff. So that's something like maybe about no more than 28 days after the election that we have this runoff, similar to what the other side had in their internal election. And it gives Tobagonians the opportunity to retain democracy in the palm of their hand because now we can go back to the polls. And all we are doing is electing a chief secretary and a presiding officer. And then whoever wins that runoff is the one who is elected, and they can go ahead and appoint their councillors and constitute the Tobago House of Assembly Executive Council. The thing about it is that from what I've been hearing from persons on the ground, basically, is that some persons are actually wants to go back to the polls in terms of being able to pick again and to pick the person that they think would be best able to lead Tobago at this time. When I talk to a lot of older persons as well, they see that having to run another election campaign would be very, very expensive and very time consuming. And it would allow the persons who are there now to continue to utilize the resources that are available at the government level to run a campaign. And the reality is that that is our money, that is taxpayers' money. So that we want to be able to quickly resolve this situation. Now, proposing something like that, like a runoff, and building that into our THA Act by simple amendment, it means that we put back power in the hands of the people of Tobago in a democratic situation to be able to choose who becomes the chief sec. And a lot of persons have indicated that, they are fine with who emerged in the THA election as their assemblymen, 6-6 on either side. And they would just like the opportunity to choose who their chief secretary is going to be. And certainly something like that would be far cheaper to execute than asking 24 candidates to go back again and redo an entire election, hoping that there would be a clear outcome. In addition to that, what people also need to know is that redrawing the boundaries in Tobago, as some persons are putting it, is not an easy thing. It means that the people who are there, and in my mind, they are there illegally. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, the law might make provisions for them to stay over in the event of a situation like this. But the reality of the situation is that it's unethical and it's immoral, I think. And there are persons there who intend to hold on to power because the law allows it. But slavery was legal, eh? So it doesn't mean that something that is legal is something that is right. And they are trying to use the law to hold on to continue to do the wrong things. Yeah. So if we have a situation where in the event of a tie, we can have this runoff take place with stipulations that the only persons who could participate in the runoff is parties that have polled more than 20% of the vote or some kind of percentage. It ensures that even if the 15 seats that they are looking to move to, let's just say another political entity merges in the next 10 years or so, and if the seats are split 5-5-5, then what happens? You still have the situation of a deadlock. You still have a situation where you have three parties holding 5 seats each. So even this proposal to go from 12 to 15 seats doesn't necessarily solve the problem of what do you do in case of a deadlock situation. And that is what they are not addressing. And that having a runoff between the persons who are the leaders of the parties, who are the candidates for chief or whatever the case might be, at the end of the day, the people have to remember that the 12 who are elected represent the 60,000, or they represent the 51,000 electors on the list who are eligible to vote. So that these people will be voting for somebody who should represent the interests of all of Tobago and not just the interests of the party that they represent. Because from the time you become an assemblyman, yes, you're an assemblyman by virtue of the fact that you run an election on a particular ticket using a particular vehicle. But then you become the assemblyman of a district, which means that you represent all the people in that district. You represent those who vote for you, those who didn't vote for you, who didn't vote at all, and the people who don't care. When you are advocating for services to come to that district, it's for everybody to benefit. It's not a health center for PDP supporters alone, or it's not a hospital for PNM people alone. It's not a fire station for supporters of one party or another. It is supposed to benefit all the persons in that district. And I think what we're seeing now is people are holding on to their party affiliation so strongly that they forget that they have been elected to serve the interests of all the persons of the people. So this is where we are at currently. The party has decided that they're going to take their case to court to get an interpretation of the law to see if it is that we can go forward in the election of a presiding officer without the intervention of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And they intend to do that, I think, from tomorrow. Where I sit and me representing the interests of the people on the ground, people have been saying that if the opportunity presented for them to choose the candidate for Chief Sec, to vote again for that person, that they would welcome the opportunity to vote for that person. As of today, that petition has garnered 10,800 signatures. It actually got to 10,000 in the first 5 days. And I have to thank everybody who has signed the petition because it says that there is an interest in seeing democracy reign. And there are persons who signed that petition, not just from Tobago, not just from Trinidad, nationally from the diaspora, who have an interest in seeing the best administration go in, right? The best administration going at this time. And for me, the most important thing is preserving democracy. Because Tobagonians, we have a thing against court. We really don't like litigation, And I mean, court is important, yes, because at least if the court gives a ruling, then we are clear as to what the intent of the law is and what the law means and what it says. But the reality is that people want to settle these things without even have to resort into court. Let us choose who our chief would be. If it is the majority of Tobagonians come out and vote for the person on the other side, then everybody can sit back and accept that result because it's a fair result. If they choose Mr. Augustine, Tobago can say, yes, we said that we wanted him as our chief and we did so by utilizing our voting finger. And I would suspect that if that was an option available to people, we would have a very high voter turnout. Persons who didn't even think about voting would gladly go and vote for their choice of chief sec.
Oh, yes. Well, yes, take a deep breath, my girl. Take a deep breath. Yeah. My lady, take a deep breath. The lady that came out after the tiger. Take the lioness. Yes. So now, what can you say to us? One slight question about the clerk of the house, her behavior right now, to you.
Well, what I can say is this. It is from a dispassionate standpoint observing. It is clear that she's not versed in the job that she has accepted. I understand that she only took up that role in November of last year, and by that time the house had already been dissolved. And I don't think she would have anticipated the situation that was presented to her. So I feel when I look at her, I see somebody who's very much unprepared. I also see somebody who is being manipulated as well, because she may have a serious fear about her job or a serious fear about carrying out her duties, in case the people who are there now retain power. And she doesn't, I guess she may not want to appear that she's allowing the other side the opportunity to get in or whatever the case might be. The reality is that, one, and I make no excuses on her behalf. She's a public servant. She was an administrator by virtue of seniority. She's holding that position, which means that she's worked in the public service for a number of years. And when you work in the public service, you take an oath. You take an oath to do your job. And at the end of the day, even if it is that there is fallout as a result of her doing her job and her now bosses are no longer her new bosses, if they fire her, if they victimize her, she has redress. So she should not be afraid to do the job that she is being paid to do. And if she's listening, I don't know who the person is. I will simply say to her, do not be afraid to do the job that you are being paid to do. You have the benefit of counsel. You can seek advice. You can seek the persons who were there before you. You can ask them their opinion, and you can go into the house and hold your head high and do the job that you are being paid to do. I mean, yes, she may come across as rude and these things, and I hope it's not on purpose. It could be nerves, it could be fear, because I mean, facing Watson in the house might be very intimidating for some people who have never had to, treat with him in that way. And if your personality is not very strong, he can come across as being very intimidating. And even the situation can be very intimidating. But you see, everything that is done in darkness is coming to light now. We can see that 20 years of having the same administration in power has led to the level of complacency that our administrators and public officers have forgotten what they are getting paid to do, which is to ensure that the island is run above board, that everything has to take place in Tobago is run according to the law, according to the books, according to the systems that have been set up to ensure transparency and accountability, and that it doesn't matter who is in charge, you need to do your job.
So we have a slight clarification here to make. As you said that you're not in defense of her and her behavior and her attitude. Now, do you think Watson is intimidating, or he's just doing his job? He has his rights.
No, he is doing his job. It's just that I know he could come across as being intimidating. If people don't know him personally or don't know,
we're not going
to
use the word intimidating to make
No, I don't mean it in a bad way.
Well, you have to change it up, because Keith Rowley waiting to hear somebody talk, or Liz Williams waiting to hear somebody talk.
No.
Yes.
Watson has a very strong personality.
Well, let me speak of that, because he's a unionist. He has
a very strong personality. Right, and that is the thing. He, as a trade unionist, he has to have that kind of very strong
and he's just
personality.
Like Rowley, so Rowley not intimidating? When Rowley
I would not even question. You see, the thing is that to me, him and the Prime Minister like chalk and cheese, because I could see Mr. Duke's heart. I can see that when he steps out and he's very sure about what he's about, that people who are less sure of themselves, or people who know they're trying to pull one over on people, they will be very scared as to the man that he represents. But at the end of the day, he's fighting for his people. And like him or not, that is his role. That is his, and he does it every day, and he does it with the passion that he displays when he walks into the house. So he's not going there to play games. He's not going there to make friends. He's not going there to make anybody feel good about themselves on that particular day. He's going there about the business of the people. And if it is, he stands up and he asks a question, and that question is not answered. He stands up again and asks another question, and the clerk says noted. And then he stands up and asks again for an interjection, and the clerk walks out on him. I don't know any human being who will not get angry or exasperated at something like that. And the reality is that these things don't have to escalate that far. These things don't have to reach that level. If this clerk was simply doing what she was supposed to do, she could have even asked for an excuse and say, well, look, Mr. Duke, I'm unsure how to answer your question. Please allow me to send the house in recess for a little half an hour so that I can seek some guidance. Simple. Nobody will cuss up for that. If you're confident about what you're doing, then you will do things like that.
So you know who should get that word next to their name? The clerk of the house. Her behavior was intimidating. When them go out and they take off, no, or she did, because they take off lights, they take off electricity, they take off the lock-up kitchen.
They take off the AC and everything.
So what word would you use for Keith Rowley, who claimed that he's a mafia, who threatened all of us so that we have to be afraid of him if we want to talk, because we know what mafia does? Who is intimidating? Rowley or
Let me tell you something. When it comes to the doctor, because I don't really say his name, right? When it comes to the doctor, I think my bishop's education becomes severely limited to sailor language. So let's not even go there. Let's not even go there. I don't even want to start to enunciate how I feel about his leadership or lack of leadership at this time. And
are you
there's a
afraid
lot
of
that I can say,
lawsuit?
but the reality is,
Are you afraid of the
no,
mafia lawsuit?
no. It's not that, it's just that at the end of the day, let me tell you something, right? I believe that if I prefer an opinion about somebody and they have the opportunity to hear that opinion, that I would hope that it's delivered in such a way that they can internalize, look within themselves, and probably change something. I know he don't give a damn. I am a small fry to he, I'm a nothing to he, so it doesn't matter what I say about him. It would not change who he is. It would not change what he does. It would not change how he chooses to govern, how he chooses to rule. So in my mind, I'm praying for the day when he's just no longer there. And somebody else can take up the mantle of leading this country, who has the best interest of this country at heart. I don't have much to say about him.
So there's another question here for you. I know we're cutting short some of them answers because people want to hear more. But as you said before, Mama Coco life is not to make people believe that we are antagonizing them. We want to make them aware that what they believe they're hiding, we are versed in our knowledge about them. And I want the final word to go out after listening to everybody, after knowing politics for all these years and politicians and how they exercise their rights and how much sometimes you have to be the one with the biggest stick in the room in order to get what you want done. And that's who Watson is. He's not intimidating. And a lot of people out there, including Miss Liz Williams, always looking to troll people around, to pick up words, and she don't even know the meaning of many of them, and look to assassinate Watson Duke, look to assassinate you, look to assassinate everybody. The clerk is trying to help to steal. I'm coming with it real. She's trying to steal the results of this election. She's playing that she's a masterminder. She's playing that she could be crude. She was highly indecent without any character building ethics. And she cannot fool me. You see, you don't have to say it. Let Mama Coco say it. No excuse for her behavior.
You sum it up the way that you see it.
Yes.
You call a spade a spade.
No apologies. That's why no mercy would be shown to them. She's been paid by taxpayers' money until everybody who walking in Tobago and all these PNM know. PNM no own no money. It is the taxpayers' money. It's the people's money. But that is how PNM have everybody believing that when they give you something or you draw your pay, a PNM will pay you. Please explain that to the people.
That is so very true.
Explain that before we go.
True, eh?
And then we have your closing. I know people want more, but explain that. Explain that.
As I said, this is the time of awakening, right? I mean, I know that a lot of people do not understand how government systems work. They don't understand how Tobago gets money. They don't know how the legislation that governs how Tobago gets money is worded. Even these agreements that are signed on Tobago's head, this agreement with Barbados over fishing waters and all of these things, the average man may not know about these things. But I want people to understand that at the end of the day, when you look at political parties, you have to look at them in the absence of them being in power. Take away the Tobago House of Assembly from them for all of a week, a month, a year. You can't see where the money coming from. You can't see what they can do without access to taxpayers' money. Imagine, and this was a point that I made, imagine the leader of the other side boasted about getting roads paved in the electoral district that she was going up in. And the argument that they tried to make was, oh, some funds became available right before the election to get all these roads paved. And I asked the question, that road bad since Moses was a little boy. The person who was there for the last 8 years was a member of your party. The person who was there for the last 8 years was a member of your assembly. And for the 8 years he was there, I'm sure on more than one occasion, he went to whoever was in charge of works and said, look, we need to get this road paved, we need to get this road paved. And he never get through. You who vying for the seats, you never represent the area before. You don't even live there. All of a sudden, money became available for you for the road to get paved. So I have a question then. If it is that you got the road paved, because I know that you are not the secretary in charge of paving, yeah? Show us the bills. Show us who was the contractor. Show us the cost of the road paving exercise and show us who is footing the bill. Is your party footing the bill or is the public footing the bill? Think on that. Because if they're using paving as an election gimmick and all these giveaways of hampers and food cards and whatever, who money paying for that? The party money or public money? Yeah? And that is the true question. And when I answer that question, we all know the answer to that question. None of their money paying for that.
Drive
none
home
of their money.
Sister, drive home the point. Drive home that point.
Is paying for that. Whoever the contractor is,
Let
whether it is Tiram, Calco, this one, wherever, it don't matter. The contractor sending the bill to the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Environment. It's not going to Balize House, Trinidad. It's not going to the Tobago Council office in Tobago. The bill will have Tobago House of Assembly marked on it, and the subhead will be Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and Environment. So Tobago people, is your money paved that road? Yeah, if you didn't know, now you know.
So drive home the point that is Indian money, is black man money, is Syrian money, is
all our money. All of us money. Is all of us money. All of us. I pay taxes, everybody who pays taxes, my parents pay taxes, everybody I grew up with who is living and working in Tobago, Trinidad, wherever. It's people from Cuba pay for that road. It's people from Port of Spain pay for that road. It's people from Toco pay for that road because we are all taxpayers. Toco people money don't just fix Toco. Cuba people money don't fix Cuba alone.
Yes,
it's
man,
taxpayers money going in a pool and it is being used to fix what has to be fixed across this nation. It's not to
drive it home, sister. Drive it home.
It is all taxpayers' money, and once they have access to the treasury, once they have access to the resources, once they have access to the largesse of the state, it means that they can use it without oversight. And this is one of the more critical elements that has to come out, the lack of oversight that currently exists. Because at the end of the day, did anybody see a tender for paving go out? I don't think that was division employees. So if it was division employees, I would love to come out and say, yes, the division paid its employees to pave this road and at what cost to the state. And if you can tell me what it costs the state, then you cannot claim fame for fixing a road using state resources for your political tricks and gimmicks. It's not your political party fix the road. It's the state fix the road. So don't try to be on one side of the fence and jump over on the other side of the fence conveniently. Is either the state fix the road or PNM fix the road. And if PNM fix the road, send the bill to Tobago Council office. Or better yet, put it in the mailbox of the leader because she took credit for the road. So send the bill by her. Address it to her and send it to her.
How ridiculous can that be? People deserve. This is civic number one. This is policies number one. Let them know that it is the people's money. They are being paid by taxpayers' dollars. Drive it home. I want you to drive that home.
For doing what you were elected to do. Roads are mandatory. Schools are mandatory. Hospitals are mandatory. Fire stations, police stations are mandatory. Medicine in the hospital is mandatory. Equipment in the hospital is mandatory. Systems that work is mandatory. That's why we elected you. That is why you were elected. These things are mandatory, but you have not done anything more than what is mandatory. And even that and all, you ain't even doing properly. You've not done anything more than what is mandatory to hold on to office. Why should you continue to hold on to office when you have demonstrated to the people of Tobago that you have no idea, you have no clue, and you don't care to implement anything that would take us from where we have been for the last 20 years in a state of stasis on this island, in a state of marking time? We have become like sleeping policemen on our own island, and we ain't going nowhere fast. That's all that's been happening. We're not going anywhere fast. They come every election cycle, they dress up new people, present them as new candidates, but the status quo remains the same. They just want to go there and see what you could get access to. And the people of Tobago have not benefited from your leadership for the longest while. So it's time to give it up. It's time to admit that you have failed and you continue to fail the people of Tobago. It is time to admit that you have not done best with the resources that we have been blessed with, that you have no clue how to utilize these resources properly. And you have to give the young Tobagonians who are now coming up the opportunity to be able to use their time, talent, skills, and education to drive transformation on this island. Simple
transformation,
as that. And
no more confirmation.
It has everything to do with people.
And please, people. And you're speaking everything that you're supposed to speak. Now what I want you to speak is what you're supposed to speak because you are in the truth. So before we go to the next question, please let the Tobago people know that you, PDP, wants everybody to know how our tax-paying dollars are spent.
Right. So based on the law, Tobago is supposed to receive tranches on a quarterly basis. That has not been happening. Tobago has been receiving its money on a monthly basis. And this is why it's important for the House to be constituted. I want to put that in. Because we are now getting our money on a monthly basis, it means that they have to meet at least once per month to scrutinize the financial statements of the Tobago House of Assembly.
Hallelujah.
We must be able to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to see what is being spent, the amounts that is being spent, the areas that these things are being spent in. So that is why when the Auditor General's management letter came out and it unearthed so many breaches and discrepancies, that was the turning point for us in terms of getting people to understand that when you don't have oversight, and you notice that this time that the Auditor General management letter refers to is the time that we had no opposition in Tobago. That was the 12-0 situation. What resulted from 12-0 was $1.1 billion that cannot be verified. And I want Tobago people to understand. So let me just say, for want of argument, that for every year that Tobago had no opposition in power, that we had no opposition in the House, that they had a 12-0 situation, they had no oversight in Tobago. Tobago people could not go into the Assembly legislature and question any of the 12 elected assemblymen. We could do no such thing. And let us just say, for want of example, that every single year there was no oversight, that $1 billion was not verified. That means that in the space of 4 years, $4 billion, which is the equivalent of almost twice Tobago's allocation in any one given year, was frittered away without the knowledge and the oversight of Tobago people. That is the danger.
My God.
Party of access to the treasury. And our governments, both of them on either side, it didn't matter who color it was, fell down on providing the oversight that was necessary to ensure that the people of Tobago were protected from these predators, because that is predatory behavior.
It is.
That in one financial year, you have people standing up and basically saying, look, we spent 92 million here and 588 million go missing there. And this other place have a couple million and contracts weren't signed in this big project where we're paying people. And this doesn't have a contract register. And this one doesn't have a rent register and we're paying rent for buildings. All of these things amounted to almost 226 breaches of the financial regulations. These are people who stand up and take their oath of office. And the oath of office speaks to performing your duties without fear or favor, malice or ill will. It speaks about being committed to the country, to the republic, to the island of Tobago, to the people of Tobago. But yet you are given responsibility for the resources that have to work on behalf of the people of Tobago. And like all a plain monopoly, as soon as you pass, go somebody collect $20 million. Or a plain monopoly with our people's lives and our children.
Hallelujah.
That is as simple as not signing a contract and a contractor to get paid, but we can't see the contract, we can't see the terms and conditions of the contract. That we could hire 19 people in the office of the chief sec. We can't find personal files for the 11 of them, but how much million go on to paying them in salaries and allowances and gratuities for God knows what. This is what this means, Tobago. it means that there was no oversight. And this situation was allowed to balloon into a festering sore that has become a cancer. Because when you think about what $1.1 billion could have done for development, what $1.1 billion could do for healthcare, could do for education on the island. We shouldn't have children having no devices. We shouldn't have them having no access to Wi-Fi. We shouldn't have them being home and not being able to benefit from schooling after a whole year of us being on lockdown and then being home. What could $1.1 billion do for sports? What could $1.1 billion do for tourism? What could $1.1 billion do for housing on the island? What could $1.1 billion do for young people who are interested in getting into businesses? What could $1.1 billion could do in terms of building out industry, manufacturing industries, and attracting foreign direct investment? What could $1.1 billion do in terms of port development? What it could do in terms of opening up Tobago to the rest of the Caribbean and the rest of the world? What could $1.1 billion literally do to turn around Tobago's fortunes in this time? And I'm saying Tobago that we will never know because that $1.1 billion is gone.
What about small business that lose so much?
Yes, we should have been able to take care of our own people during COVID. That if Trinidad was paying $1,500 grants, we should have been able to give families $5,000. We should have been able to help our small businesses to survive COVID lockdown and to gain some sense of resiliency so that when they open back, they should have been able to continue their business operations and continue to provide employment. What could $1.1 billion do for our private sector in terms of becoming the largest employer on the island instead of the Tobago House of Assembly carrying that burden to pay all of the salaries all of the time, so that we can emancipate our people from having to depend on a contract from a secretary who like them, or an administrator who like them, or a supervisor. They have to toe the line every day. They now get a contract. They're not getting the gratuities. They're on month-to-month contract. That you're a young professional as a doctor in the hospital and you can't even be made permanent. You are on 1 year and 3 year and 2 year contract and 6 month contract. After you don't spend your money, your parents send you abroad, they send you to Grenada to study, they sacrifice, they send money for you. The education is expensive, and then when you go back home, the THA is telling you all your worth is a 6 month contract. That is why our young doctors are leaving our shores. That is why they are staying abroad. That is why they are contributing to the healthcare systems of other countries, the USA, England, the rest of the Caribbean.
Because when they come home, they are not
all our nurses. When they come home, they are not being valued. They are telling you that, yes, we'll give you a 3 year contract, but when it's time for you to get your gratuity, you have to wait 3 years. On top of the 3 years, you done work to get a gratuity that is owed to you, that you done work for already, and they're not even paying you the gratuity with interest.
Yes.
Because if I owe the government, if I owe the THA, for every day that I owe them, they drop interest on that. So if I owe them a 30,000, by the time I'm ready to pay is 100,000. But when they're holding your gratuity, your little 30,000 or your little 50,000, that they could hold it for 3 years and they wouldn't even put one drop of interest on it. So if it was $50,000 they owe you in 2010, when you finally get it in 2015, it's the same 50,000, but the cost of living gone up by 3 times since then. So the money ain't even worth as half as much as it is when you finally get it. You know what $1.1 billion could have done to erase the disparity in the cost of living between Trinidad and Tobago. $1.1 billion.
Tashia, we have another question for you. Tashia, we have another question for you. You are on a roll. This is what politics is all about. This is how you teach your people. That is how many people don't learn. They haven't learned anything for the past 60 years from the People's National Movement way of doing politics.
And it all comes from, again, as I said, because you see, everything is in divine order and timing. People are slowly becoming unafraid. And we are seeing more empowered people now.
Yes, thanks to people like you. That is why I know a lot of these people, a lot of these old PNM there, including some people name I wouldn't call today, they are done. They don't have this drive. They don't have this message. They don't have facts. So we don't need to hear from those politicians anymore. My dear, they passed their time. A lot of them past time. When them coming to talk about is what happened when them before they leave to go to America to study, or before they get sent away to Costa Rica and you come back with nothing new. Right now, this is fire. Fire in the hole. Fire.